The whistle of the eastbound train faded into the distance, leaving Sophia Vance utterly alone on the wooden platform of Willow Creek Station as the sun began its descent behind the rugged Montana mountains. September 1885 had brought an early autumn chill, and with it, the most devastating moment of her 22 years of life. She stood frozen, clutching nothing but a small valise containing a few personal belongings, her entire world having just departed on that train along with the man who had promised her marriage, security, and a future. "Miss. Station's closing up now," the station master called, eyeing her with a mixture of impatience and pity as he locked the ticket office door. Sophia nodded mechanically, her mind still reeling from Edward's final words before he'd boarded that train without her. "I'm sorry, Sophia. My family would never accept you. It's better this way." After convincing her to leave her position as a schoolteacher in Chicago, after promising her a new life in Montana territory, after spending every last cent of her savings on traveling expenses, he had abandoned her. She descended the platform steps on trembling legs, the gravity of her situation becoming clearer with each passing moment. No money, no home, no prospects, and nightfall approaching in a town where she knew not a soul. "You look like you might need some assistance, madam." The voice was deep, with a gentle drawl that caught her by surprise. Sophia turned to find herself facing a tall figure silhouetted against the setting sun. As he stepped closer, she could make out a weather-beaten Stetson, broad shoulders under a worn denim jacket, and eyes the color of a summer sky. "I'm quite all right, thank you," she replied automatically, her pride refusing to acknowledge the dire nature of her circumstances. The man tilted his head slightly, his expression indicating he didn't believe her for a second. "Name's Samuel Austin. I own a cattle ranch about 5 miles outside of town." He glanced at her solitary bag, then back at the now empty train platform. "Forgive my presumption, but it appears someone might have left you in a difficult situation." Tears threatened at his gentle observation, but Sophia blinked them back furiously. "I've been delayed. My fiancé has gone ahead to secure our living arrangements." Samuel Austin's eyes, perceptive and kind, saw right through her lie. "When's he coming back for you?" The direct question broke something inside her. A single tear escaped despite her best efforts. "That's what I thought," he said softly. "Miss Vance, Sophia Vance." "Miss Vance, night's coming on, and Willow Creek isn't the kind of place for a lady to be wandering without destination. You've got no money and no home right now, do you?" Her silence was answer enough. Samuel removed his hat, revealing thick chestnut hair. "Well, Miss Vance, if you're willing to trust a stranger, which I know is asking a great deal, you've got both with me. I've a spare room at the ranch, and my housekeeper, Mrs. Holloway, is there to ensure all propriety, at least until you can make other arrangements." Sophia regarded him warily. "Why would you help someone you don't know?" "Because my mother taught me better than to leave a lady in distress," he replied simply. "And because anyone who'd abandon someone like you at a train station doesn't deserve a second thought." Something in his straightforward manner and the clear honesty in his eyes made her consider his offer. What choice did she really have? The alternative was spending the night on the streets of an unfamiliar frontier town. "I can offer you honest work too," he added. "My ranch hands need feeding, and Mrs. Holloway could use help with the cooking." "I've never cooked for more than 3 people in my life," Sophia admitted. Samuel's mouth quirked into a half-smile. "Can you read?" "I was a schoolteacher." "Then you can read recipes, and that's a start." He gestured toward a wagon parked nearby. "The offer stands. A safe place to stay, honest work, and transportation to wherever you'd like to go once you've saved enough money." Sophia took a deep breath, surveying the rapidly emptying street. She thought of Edward, who'd seemed so refined and perfect with his fancy words and promises, and how quickly he'd revealed his true character. This rough-hewn cowboy with his direct speech and weathered hands was offering more genuine kindness than her gentleman fiancé ever had. "I accept your offer, Mr. Austin. Thank you." "Samuel, please," he said, taking her bag, "or Sam if you prefer." As they walked toward his wagon, Sophia felt a strange mixture of terror and relief. Everything she'd planned had fallen apart, yet somehow she wasn't completely alone. "Just so we're clear," Samuel said as he helped her onto the wagon seat, "I expect nothing from you except honest work. Your virtue and privacy are safe with me." Sophia found herself believing him completely. "I appreciate that, Samuel." The ride to the Austin ranch revealed miles of rolling grassland bathed in the golden light of sunset. Sophia watched as herds of cattle dotted the landscape, with riders moving among them like figures from a painting. "It's beautiful," she murmured, the vastness of the Montana territory momentarily distracting her from her troubles. "Been in my family for 15 years, Samuel explained. "My father claimed this land when I was just a boy, built it from nothing." Pride resonated in his voice. "He passed 3 years ago. My mother returned to Tennessee to live with my sister after that." "I'm sorry about your father." Samuel nodded in acknowledgement. "What brought you out west, if you don't mind my asking?" Sophia hesitated, then decided the truth was simpler than fabrications. "Edward, my former fiancé, painted a picture of a life together in Montana. He was to establish a law practice, and I would teach. He convinced me to leave my position in Chicago." She twisted her hands in her lap. "Yesterday he informed me his wealthy family wouldn't approve of me. Apparently, a school teacher without social connections isn't suitable for a rising attorney." Samuel's jaw tightened. Some men don't recognize true value when they see it. The wagon crested a hill, revealing a sprawling ranch house nestled against a backdrop of pine trees. Several outbuildings and a large barn formed a rough semicircle around a central yard. Lanterns glowed in the windows as darkness settled over the land. "Welcome to the rocking, Samuel said. As they approached, a heavy-set woman emerged from the house, wiping her hands on her apron. "Mrs. Holloway," Samuel called out, "we have a guest who will be staying with us for a while." The housekeeper's expression shifted from curiosity to warm understanding as Samuel briefly explained Sophia's situation. "You poor dear," she said, taking Sophia's arm. "Let's get you settled. You must be exhausted." Sophia was shown to a small but clean bedroom with simple furnishings. A basin of warm water was brought for washing, and Mrs. Holloway promised to find her some suitable work clothes for the morning. "The men eat breakfast at sunrise," the housekeeper explained. "I'll wake you early so you can help. Don't worry, they are a decent bunch. Mr. Austin doesn't tolerate troublemakers." Left alone, Sophia sat on the edge of the bed, overwhelmed by the day's events. Her entire future had been rewritten in the span of hours. Yet as she listened to the unfamiliar sounds of the ranch, distant lowing of cattle, the creak of the windmill, men's voices drifting from the bunkhouse, she felt an unexpected sense of peace. Whatever tomorrow brought, she would face it with the same courage that had carried her this far. Morning arrived with a gentle knock on her door. Mrs. Holloway had brought a simple cotton dress and apron that had belonged to Samuel's mother. "It might be a bit large," the housekeeper said, "but it'll do until we can get something better." The kitchen was already bustling when Sophia entered. The massive wood stove radiated heat as Mrs. Holloway instructed her in preparing enough flapjacks, eggs, and bacon to feed 15 hungry ranch hands. "Just follow the recipe in this book," the older woman said, pointing to a worn journal filled with handwritten instructions. "And don't let them intimidate you. They're like hungry wolves, but harmless ones." When the men filed in for breakfast, Sophia felt their curious glances, but Samuel's presence at the head of the table kept any comments at bay. He'd introduced her simply as Miss Vance, who will be helping Mrs. Holloway, and that seemed explanation enough for the moment. Days turned into weeks as Sophia settled into ranch life. She learned to cook for large groups, to preserve vegetables from the kitchen garden, and even to make soap and candles. The physical labor left her exhausted each night, but it was an honest tiredness that brought dreamless sleep. Samuel was often gone from dawn until dusk, managing the vast operation of the ranch, but their paths crossed at mealtimes. He was unfailingly polite, asking after her comfort but never prying into her past or future plans. Sometimes, she caught him watching her with an expression she couldn't quite decipher before he would quickly look away. One evening in late October, as Sophia was returning from the henhouse with a basket of eggs, she encountered Samuel by the corral, watching as one of his men worked with a young horse. "Evening, Miss Vance," he greeted, tipping his hat. "How are you finding ranch life?" "Different from teaching multiplication tables," she replied with a small smile, "but not unpleasant." Samuel leaned against the fence. "Mrs. Holloway says you're a quick study in the kitchen. She's a patient teacher." Sophia paused, then added, "I'm grateful for the opportunity, Samuel. Not everyone would have offered what you did." "Any decent man would have done the same," he said, his gaze fixed on the horse circling the corral. "I'm not so sure about that." She thought of Edward and his easy betrayal. "Decency seems rarer than I once believed." Samuel turned to study her face. "One man's failings shouldn't color your view of all men, Miss Vance." "Sophia," she corrected. "After all this time, I think we can dispense with formalities." His smile transformed his weathered face, softening the lines around his eyes. "Sophia, then." A comfortable silence fell between them as they watched the horse trainer work. "Have you given any thought to your plans?" Samuel finally asked. "You must have nearly enough saved for passage elsewhere by now." The question caught her off guard. She had indeed been saving her modest wages, but the thought of leaving had become increasingly distant. "I suppose I haven't decided yet. Winter's approaching, and travel will be difficult." Samuel nodded. "You're welcome to stay through the winter. Spring would be a better time for new beginnings." That night, Sophia lay awake, pondering her future. Chicago held nothing for her now her teaching position had been filled, her small apartment rented to someone else. She had no family to return to, having lost her parents years ago. The Rocking A, which had been merely a temporary refuge, had begun to feel like something more. And then there was Samuel. Steady, honorable Samuel with his quiet strength and unexpected gentleness. She found herself watching for him each day, enjoying their brief conversations, admiring the way he treated everyone from Mrs. Holloway to the youngest ranch hand with the same respect. November brought the first snowfall, transforming the ranch into a wonderland of white. It also brought trouble in the form of cattle rustlers who struck during a blizzard, driving off nearly 30 head from the north pasture. Samuel organized a group to track them, despite the dangerous weather. "We can't let this stand," he told his foreman. "If we do, they'll be back for more." Sophia overheard the conversation and felt a cold fear grip her heart. "You're going after them in this weather?" she asked when the men had dispersed. "Have to," Samuel replied, checking his rifle. "Cattle are our livelihood." "But it's dangerous," she protested. "The temperature is dropping by the hour." His expression softened at her concern. "I'll be careful, Sophia. Promise." The men were gone for 3 days. 3 days of Sophia pacing by windows, startling at every sound and sleeping poorly. When they finally returned, Samuel was supporting one of his men who'd taken a bullet in the shoulder during a confrontation with the rustlers. "The doctor's coming," Samuel told her as they helped the injured man into the house. "We got the cattle back. Turned the rustlers over to the sheriff in Silver Creek." That evening, after the doctor had tended to the wounded ranch hand, Sophia found Samuel alone on the porch, despite the biting cold. "You should come inside," she said, wrapping her shawl tighter. "You'll catch your death out here." "Just needed some air." His voice was weary, his face drawn with exhaustion. "Killing never sits well with me, even when necessary." Sophia stepped closer. "You had to defend yourself and your men. Doesn't make it any easier." He ran a hand over his face. "One of the rustlers didn't make it. Young fellow, probably not more than 20. Without thinking, Sophia placed her hand on his arm. "You did what you had to do to protect what's yours." Samuel looked down at her hand, then covered it with his own. The warmth of his touch sent a flutter through her chest. "Thank you," he said softly, "for understanding." Their eyes met in the dim light from the window, and something unspoken passed between them. For a breathless moment, Sophia thought he might lean closer, but instead he gently squeezed her hand and straightened. "Better get inside before you freeze," he said, his voice rough with emotion. As winter deepened, life at the ranch settled into a rhythm dictated by snow and cold. With fewer outdoor tasks, the ranch hands spent more time in the bunkhouse playing cards and swapping stories. Samuel worked on repairs and planning for the spring, and Sophia found herself with more free time than she'd had since arriving. One afternoon, she discovered Samuel's small library, 3 shelves of books in a corner of his study that she'd never fully explored before. "Feel free to borrow anything that interests you," he said, finding her examining the titles. "Not much call for reading among the men, so they don't get much use." Sophia selected a volume of poetry and was surprised when Samuel commented on her choice. "Wordsworth, my mother's favorite." "You've read poetry?" she asked, unable to hide her surprise. Samuel's smile held a touch of amusement. "I might be a rancher, but I did attend school back east before my father decided Montana needed us more than Philadelphia did." This revelation led to evenings by the fire, discussing books and ideas after Mrs. Holloway had retired. Sophia discovered Samuel had a quick mind and thoughtful opinions on everything from politics to literature. He, in turn, seemed to value her perspective, asking questions about her teaching experiences and listening intently to her answers. These conversations became the highlight of Sophia's days. Slowly, the pain of Edward's betrayal faded, replaced by a growing admiration for the man who had rescued her that day at the station. Christmas at the Rocking brought unexpected joy. The ranch hands decorated the main house with pine boughs and homemade ornaments. Mrs. Holloway outdid herself preparing a feast, with Sophia's assistance. Even the weather cooperated, providing a clear, starry night for the celebrations. After dinner, Samuel presented Sophia with a small package wrapped in brown paper. "Just something I thought you might like," he said, uncharacteristically hesitant. Inside was a beautiful leather-bound journal. "For your thoughts," he explained. "You mentioned once that you used to keep a journal while teaching." Touched by his thoughtfulness and the fact that he'd remembered such a small detail, Sophia impulsively reached up and kissed his cheek. "It's perfect. Thank you." His eyes widened at the gesture, and a flush crept up his neck. Later that evening, as carols were sung around the piano, Mrs. Holloway played with surprising skill. Sophia caught Samuel watching her with an expression that made her heart race. January brought the coldest weather in memory. The ranch was essentially isolated, with snow too deep for easy travel to town. During one particularly brutal blizzard, everyone huddled in the main house, even the ranch hands abandoning their bunkhouse for the warmth of the larger building. Sophia was checking on the fire in the kitchen stove when Samuel entered, carrying more wood. "Storm's getting worse," he reported, stamping snow from his boots. "Good thing we're all under one roof tonight." "Will the cattle be all right?" she asked, having learned over the months how crucial the herd was to the ranch's survival. "They'll bunch together in the sheltered areas." "Cattle are tougher than they look." He stacked the wood neatly by the stove. "Like some people I know." Sophia glanced up, catching his meaningful look. "I'm not sure what you mean. Just that you've adapted to ranch life with more grace than most city folk would." He straightened, brushing wood chips from his hands. "You're stronger than you give yourself credit for, Sophia." The compliment warmed her more than the blazing stove. "I've had good teachers." Their eyes met across the kitchen, and the air between them seemed to thicken with unspoken feelings. Samuel took a step toward her just as Mrs. Holloway bustled in with empty coffee cups, breaking the moment. That night, unable to sleep despite the howling wind outside, Sophia wrote in her new journal, "I came to Montana following someone else's dream and found myself abandoned. Yet in that abandonment, I may have discovered where I truly belong. Is it possible to find home in a place you never sought? To find love when you'd given up on it?" The word, love, gave her pause. Was that what she felt for Samuel Austin? This complicated mixture of gratitude, admiration, friendship, and something deeper that made her pulse quicken when he entered a room. February brought a gradual thaw and with it, renewed activity on the ranch. Sophia found herself busier than ever, especially after Mrs. Holloway slipped on ice and sprained her ankle, leaving most of the household duties to Sophia. One evening, as she was preparing dinner alone, Samuel came into the kitchen looking troubled. "Everything all right?" she asked, noting his furrowed brow. "Just received word from my sister in Tennessee," he replied, sinking into a chair at the kitchen table. "My mother's health is failing. Caroline's asked me to come as soon as possible." Sophia's heart sank at the thought of his departure. "When will you leave?" "Tomorrow, if the weather holds." "The train east leaves at noon." He ran a hand through his hair. "I hate leaving the ranch, especially with spring calving approaching, but family comes first," Sophia finished for him. "Of course you must go." Samuel nodded, his blue eyes clouded with worry. "I've asked Tom Jenkins to oversee things. He's been foreman long enough to handle it, and Mrs. Holloway will keep the house running once she's back on her feet." "And I'll help her," Sophia assured him. "Don't worry about things here." He studied her face for a long moment. "I've grown accustomed to seeing you every day," he admitted quietly. "I'll miss that while I'm gone." The simple confession sent warmth spreading through her chest. "I'll miss you too." Samuel rose and moved toward the door, then hesitated. "Sophia, when I return, there's something I'd like to discuss with you, about your future, and possibly our future." Before she could respond, he was gone, leaving her heart pounding with anticipation and uncertainty. The following morning, Sophia rose early to help Samuel prepare for his journey. She packed food for his trip and pressed his best shirt for traveling. As he loaded his bags into the wagon that would take him to town, he turned to her with obvious reluctance. "I shouldn't be gone more than 3 weeks, barring any complications." "Your mother needs you," Sophia said. "Take whatever time is necessary." Samuel took her hands in his expression serious. "Promise me you'll still be here when I return." "Where else would I go?" she asked softly. "You could go anywhere," he replied. "Back east, to another town. You're not bound to this place." Sophia squeezed his hands. "I'll be here, Samuel. I promise." The days after his departure stretched endlessly. Sophia threw herself into work, helping Mrs. Holloway as her ankle healed, assisting with early preparations for spring planting in the kitchen garden, and continuing her regular cooking duties. At night, she wrote long entries in her journal, examining her feelings for Samuel and imagining what he might want to discuss upon his return. Did he intend to offer her a permanent position? Or was it possible he felt the same growing attachment she did? 2 weeks after Samuel's departure, trouble arrived in the form of 3 riders who appeared at the ranch one afternoon. Sophia was hanging laundry when they approached, and something in their manner immediately put her on alert. "Afternoon, madam," the lead rider called, tipping his hat with exaggerated politeness. "Is Mr. Austin about?" "I'm afraid he's away on family business," Sophia replied cautiously. "His foreman, Mr. Jenkins, can assist you if you have ranch matters to discuss." The man dismounted, revealing a tall, lean figure with cold eyes. "That's unfortunate. We have some unfinished business with Austin." Tom Jenkins emerged from the barn, alerted by the arrival of strangers. "Can I help you gentlemen, you Jenkins?" the man asked. When Tom nodded, he continued, "Name's Carter. These are my brothers, Illy and Frank. We're here about those cattle rustlers Austin turned in back in November." "What about them?" Tom's hand drifted subtly toward the revolver at his hip. "One of them was our cousin," Carter said flatly. "The one that didn't make it back alive." Sophia felt a chill that had nothing to do with the February air. "Mr. Jenkins," she said carefully, "perhaps we should continue this conversation inside where it's warmer." "No need for hospitality, madam," Carter said. "We just came to deliver a message to Austin." His eyes hardened. "An eye for an eye, he took our kin, so we'll be taking something of his." Tom stepped forward. "You boys need to leave. Now." Carter's hand moved faster than Sophia could follow, drawing his gun and firing in one fluid motion. Tom crumpled to the ground with a cry of pain, clutching his leg. "Get the men," Sophia shouted to Mrs. Holloway, who had appeared on the porch at the sound of the shot. The housekeeper disappeared inside as Sophia rushed to Tom's side. The bullet had torn through his thigh, blood seeping between his fingers as he pressed against the wound. "Now," Carter said, turning his gun toward Sophia, "since Austin ain't here, we'll have to improvise our message. I'm thinking burning down his precious ranch might communicate our feelings effectively." "That won't bring your cousin back," Sophia said, trying to keep her voice steady despite her terror. "No, but it'll make us feel better." He gestured to his brothers. "Start with the barn, then the bunkhouse." As the other men dismounted, rifle shots rang out from the main house windows. Several ranch hands had responded to Mrs. Holloway's alarm, and they now provided covering fire that forced the Carter brothers to take shelter behind their horses. "Get Tom inside," someone shouted from the house. With the help of one of the younger ranch hands who had crawled out to assist, Sophia managed to drag the injured foreman toward the porch while bullets splintered the wood around them. The firefight continued for several terrifying minutes. One of the Carter brothers was hit in the shoulder, and the 3 men eventually retreated, but not before setting fire to the corner of the barn. The ranch hands rushed to extinguish the flames while Sophia and Mrs. Holloway tended to Tom's wound as best they could. "They'll be back," Tom said grimly as Sophia wrapped his leg. "Men like that don't give up easy." "We need to get word to the sheriff," Mrs. Holloway said, "and to Mr. Austin." "I'll go," offered a young ranch hand named Billy. "I can take the shortcut through Miller's Pass and be in town before dark." As Billy rode out, the remaining men secured the ranch as best they could. Windows were boarded, ammunition distributed, and watches established. Sophia barely slept that night, jumping at every sound and praying for Samuel's return. The next day passed in tense anticipation. The sheriff arrived by mid-afternoon with 2 deputies, having been alerted by Billy. "The Carter brothers are bad news," he confirmed after examining Tom's wound. "Been causing trouble across 3 territories. I've sent telegrams to neighboring towns to watch for them." "Will you stay?" Sophia asked anxiously. "Can't," the sheriff replied. "Got reports they were spotted near Elkhorn, might be planning something there. But I'll leave Deputy Wilson here with you folks." That night, as Sophia was checking on Tom, Mrs. Holloway brought her a telegram that had arrived with the sheriff. "Arriving tomorrow. Stop, mother. Improving. Stop. Do not worry. Stop." Samuel. Relief flooded through her at the thought of Samuel's imminent return, though she worried about the danger he might be riding into. The Carter brothers made their move just before dawn. The sound of gunshots jerked Sophia from her fitful sleep. She rushed to the window in time to see flames leaping from the roof of the bunkhouse. "Fire!" she shouted, rousing the others. The ranch hands who had been sleeping in the main house for safety quickly organized themselves. Some formed a bucket brigade while others returned fire at the shadowy figures darting between outbuildings. In the chaos, Sophia lost track of who was where. She focused on helping Mrs. Holloway tend to a ranch hand who'd been grazed by a bullet, using skills she'd learned during her months at the ranch. The gunfire had just begun to die down when she heard a familiar voice shouting orders outside. Rushing to the window, she saw Samuel dismounting from his horse, rifle in hand, directing men to strategic positions. Her heart soared at the sight of him, but fear quickly followed as a shot rang out and Samuel ducked behind a water trough. Carter's voice carried across the yard, taunting him. The standoff continued as the eastern sky began to lighten. Sophia could see Samuel pinned down, unable to move without exposing himself to Carter's fire. Making a split-second decision, she grabbed a rifle from the wall, checked that it was loaded as Samuel had once shown her, and slipped out the back door. Using the smokehouse for cover, she worked her way around to a position where she could see Carter crouched behind an overturned wagon. Her hands trembled as she raised the rifle, not aiming to hit him but to distract him. Her shot splintered wood near Carter's head, causing him to duck instinctively. In that moment of distraction, Samuel broke cover and tackled the man, knocking his gun away. The fight that followed was brutal but brief. Samuel's rage at finding his home under attack gave him the advantage, and soon Carter was subdued. His remaining brother, seeing their leader captured, attempted to flee but was quickly apprehended by the ranch hands. As the sun rose fully, illuminating the damage to the ranch, Sophia found herself standing amidst the chaos, still clutching the rifle. Samuel approached slowly, his face smudged with soot and a cut bleeding above his eye. "That was either the bravest or the most foolish thing I've ever seen," he said, gently taking the rifle from her hands. "You could have been killed." "So could you," she replied, her voice unsteady. "I couldn't just watch." Samuel's expression softened as he reached out to touch her cheek. "I came back to find my home under attack and the woman I love in danger, not exactly the homecoming I'd planned." Sophia's breath caught at his words. "The woman you love?" "Yes," he said simply. "I think I've loved you since that day at the train station, though I didn't recognize it then. I just knew I couldn't leave you there alone." Tears filled her eyes. "I never thought I'd find love here. After Edward was a fool," Samuel interrupted. "The biggest fool I never met." His thumb brushed away a tear that had escaped down her cheek. "That future I wanted to discuss with you. I was going to ask if you'd consider staying permanently, as my wife." Sophia's heart swelled with emotion. "I think I've been waiting for you to ask since Christmas." Samuel's smile was radiant despite his exhausted, battered appearance. "Is that a yes?" "Yes," Sophia whispered, stepping into his embrace. 1,000 times yes. As the ranch began to recover from the attack in the days that followed, Sophia found moments of surprising happiness amidst the work of rebuilding. The bunkhouse was a loss, but the barn had been saved, and miraculously, no lives had been lost. The Carter brothers were in custody, facing charges that would keep them imprisoned for many years. Samuel and Sophia were married in April, with wildflowers decorating the ranch house and the entire crew in attendance. Mrs. Holloway wept openly, claiming she'd known all along they were meant for each other. Later that evening, as they stood on the porch of the home that was now truly hers, Sophia reflected on the journey that had brought her here. "You ever think about how different our lives would be if Edward hadn't abandoned me that day?" she asked, leaning into Samuel's embrace. "I try not to think kindly of any man who hurt you," Samuel replied, his arms tightening around her. "But I can't help but be grateful for whatever twist of fate brought you to that station when I was passing by." Sophia turned in his arms to face him. "You said something to me that day that I'll never forget. When I had nothing, you told me I had both a home and money with you." "And now?" Samuel asked, his eyes reflecting the stars above. "Now I have everything," she whispered, rising on her toes to kiss the man who had given her not just shelter, but a love beyond anything she could have imagined when she stood alone on that platform, watching her old life disappear with the eastbound train. As summer approached, the rocking flourished under their combined care. Sophia established a small school for the children of neighboring ranchers, finding joy in teaching again while helping Samuel manage their growing enterprise. They faced the challenges of ranch life together: drought, illness, market fluctuations, drawing strength from the bond that had been forged in the most unexpected circumstances. And each year, on the anniversary of the day they met, Samuel would take her hand and remind her with a smile, "You've got a home with me, Sophia Austin. Forever."